Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to use this story pacing chart. Alright guys, I'm going to teach you how to use this story pacing graphic organizer. Basically, when we're talking about story pacing, we're talking about how quickly an author moves through the events of the story. And you can see from the Ira Sleeps Over one that it kind of follows the shape of the storytelling arc, right? Some of the events aren't as intense, so they're shorter on this chart. The exposition doesn't have a lot of heavy emotion or a lot of intense things happening, so it's just kind of a small little box. And then as we move through the story, you can see the heights of the boxes get a little bit taller. That's because the emotion or the intensity of the story, the intensity of the events increases a little bit until finally we get to our climax towards the end, which is supposed to be the most intense part of our story. And then you can see that the chart elements get smaller again because the intensity of the story lessens. And you can also see that some of the events are wider than others, right? So in Ira Sleeps Over, the exposition and the conflict happen really quick in the story. And then we spend a lot of time watching Ira go back and forth about what he's going to do, right? And we see different things happen in that rising action where it keeps going back and forth. And it's a big part of the story. So that's why this box is wide. And then the sleepover is a pretty big chunk of it, but it's not anywhere near as big as him trying to decide what to do. And then the other parts are pretty short compared to that back and forth. So using that as my example, keeping in mind how intense the emotions are going to be and that they'll go up as my story progresses and then they'll go back down again, I'm going to go ahead and make my own chart. So I've given you guys some boxes on the side, and you can see that there's some different sizes and stuff there. You just change the boxes as you need to. So if your climax is a really short piece, your box is probably going to be pretty skinny. But since it's climax, it's going to be kind of tall, right? Or maybe you have a back and forth part like Ira does in his story that takes a while. You'd make your box longer to show that that's going to take a longer piece of time in your story. When you are developing your own story pacing, you're going to want to use your story elements chart that you created before. And specifically, you want to go down to that sequence of events that you created. And you're going to also want to look at your storytelling arc to keep track of the emotional intensity of your story. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fill out my chart right now, and I'll leave it as an example for you guys on our Google Classroom. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with.